love to share whatever we have with as many people as we can. Shalom Uvracha. We would like to study this evening Parshat Shmini with special emphasis on the 11th chapter of Leviticus from our Torah section, which speaks of the details of the kosher and non-kosher animals. The Torah teaches us that there are two basic signs of kosher animals, one having something to do with split hooves, and one having something to do with some level of an animal chewing its cud, of some kind of level of rumination. And if the animal has these two signs of kashrut, then the animal is kosher. And then the Torah lists several animals and speaks about them being non-kosher because they don't have these signs, both of these signs of kashrut. But interestingly enough, the Torah mentions about each of them, only a select few, that it has one of the signs of kosher, but it lacks the other, therefore it's not kosher. So I was studying in the Kli Yakar, one of the great classical commentaries on Torah, printed in most editions of Mikraot Gedolah. He asks, why is it, for instance, in our chapter, in our section, when the Torah speaks about various animals, the camel, the gamal, why is a camel prohibited to be consumed by Jews? Well, it's because it does not have any kind of split hooves. You have to have split hooves to be kosher. But the Torah doesn't say that. The Torah says, Et hagamal ki ma'alei geirahu. The camel has some system of double digestion, has some system of rumination. But uparsayin eno mafris, but it doesn't have split hooves. Tamehu lachem, it's impure. Ask the Kli Yakar, what are you telling me what it has? That's nothing to do with why it's impure. That has nothing to do with why it's not kosher. The reason why it's not kosher is not because it has the sign, one sign of kashrut, and lacks the other. It's because it lacks the second one. And if that's the reason, then why? And all of the examples that are given here, the example of the shafan, the example of the arnevet, the example of the various forms of a hare, and or even the chazir, which perhaps in Jewish tradition, for some reason, which maybe we'll talk about this evening, is perhaps one of the most detestable of all non-kosher animals, the pig. The Torah doesn't say the pig is non-kosher because it does not have this system of chewing its cud. The Torah starts off by saying the chazir has split hooves. Has split hooves, you know. But it does not have this process of rumination, therefore it's non-kosher. Rabbi Palm once said, I think he said jokingly, Rabbi Palm was a great Torah teacher in blessed memory in Yeshiva Torah B'dai. He once was talking to a group of educators, Torah educators, and he said, if on parent teachers evening, when you meet the parents of the students that you're trying to teach, all you have to say is what they're lacking. All you have to say is what they don't have. Then you're not giving them the same dignity that the pig is given in the Torah. I mean, even the Torah found even something positive to say about the chazir. You can't say something positive about your student, and if you can't, then maybe you should reconsider the way you speak. He said it with a smile on his face. So the Kli Yakar discusses, and this is very, very important, that the Torah does not list all of the non-kosher animals. It only lists the ones that have one sign of kosher, but lacks the other. I would like to study the approach of the Kli Yakar, who suggests that precisely because the animal has one sign of kosher, then it's extremely difficult and extremely dangerous, spiritually speaking. The lesson to be derived therein, not necessarily from this animal, but the lesson to be derived for life. When something is almost kosher, when something resembles that which is kosher, one has to be extremely careful. When I was growing up in the United States, I don't know if it still exists. Anybody know what kosher style is?
Yeah.
You know what kosher style is?
Yeah.
What is it?
It's not kosher.
Kosher style, right? I remember big signs in front of hotels. Kosher style, kosher style meant that the kinds of foods will resemble that which is kosher, but it's not kosher. Right? Kosher style, can lead a person to think that maybe I'm eating kosher. It's not kosher, it's almost kosher. I mean, this animal is, look at this pig. I mean, it has split hooves. Okay, it's lacking one detail, one part of it. And perhaps when something is not complete, when something is almost deceiving in the fact that it looks to be somewhat kosher, then that can lead to a certain level of ruination. When you have to deal with someone who is straightforward, and they're very clearly your enemy, let's say, God forbid, may you have no enemies. May the Jewish people have no enemies. May there be no enemies in the world. May all the enemies turn tonight to be may they all repent and become do tshuva, right? But let's say in the past, right? In the past, if God forbid someone has an enemy, and they declare themselves to be an enemy, you can deal with them, right? I know this person is my enemy. But if they appear to be my friend, if they appear to be somewhat kosher, if they appear to be somewhat friendly, if they appear to be somewhat close to me, I have to be very careful. If you remember the conflict, may there never be another conflict between brothers. Remember the tragic conflict between Joseph and his brothers? Remember that? And the Torah speaks about how they hated him. You remember that section? And it says, Vayisneu oto. They hated him. V'lo yachlu dabero l'shalom. And they couldn't speak any words of peace to him. They could not speak peacefully to him. The rabbis comment, although that's very negative, although it's so horrific, right, that brothers shouldn't speak to each other, there's some positive aspect of that statement. There's some positive aspect of that description. You know why? Because at least they didn't pretend to go through the motions of speaking to him with a smile when inside they were harboring hatred. Although this is speaking about the negative aspects of the brothers, there's something very positive being said here. They were not achad bapeh, achad balev. They weren't two-faced. There were 32 teeth in the mouth, right? So 32 in Hebrew is the numerical value of the Hebrew word for heart. 32 is lamed beis, right? So someone once said, because your heart and your mouth should be joined together. Shelo yehei achad bapeh v'achad balev. In the Mishnah, in Tractate Sotah, the rabbis speak about certain people who pretend to be holy. Makot prushim harei elu mivalei olam. The people who appear to be so pious, they appear to be so righteous, they appear to fast, they appear to go through all kinds of afflictions, in the name of God. It's very dangerous, because if it's not really coming from a place of righteousness, they can destroy the world. Maybe we have to be very, very careful. Maybe in terms of our service of God, in terms of our pursuit of righteousness in this world, sometimes an animal which is completely non-kosher, and I'm using the concept of animals metaphorically here, sometimes a type of activity which is completely off, we understand that. An activity which is completely on, we're there. The activities which are in the middle, an aspect which is yes, an aspect which is no, an aspect which is light, but an aspect which is dark, be very careful. And maybe each of us in his or her own way should restudy the 11th chapter of Leviticus and restudy the messages of God. That even though you do find some redeeming quality in these animals, make sure that you still can conclude that they are impure. Make sure that you can still conclude that you should keep your distance from them because they're extremely dangerous, spiritually speaking. May God guide us on the proper pathway of life, and may we learn to identify the true signs of kosher, not only in animals, put in the proper pathways of living as well.
Well,
Thank you so much.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Thank you.